are just some players in fantasy hockey that have an incredible amount of risk associated to their profile. And there's some players that seemingly have an incredible amount of reward associated to that risk. Hence the title high risk, high reward players. These are players that are going to pay off if everything goes according to plan, but also have equally just as much of risk as it going wrong as it does going right. That being said, guys, this is one of my favorite fantasy puck videos that I get to make every single year. Super excited to hear your guys' thoughts. Let's get into the video. We've got a lot to talk about with Filip Forsberg. Now, before all of you freak out, I want to start off by saying I think Filip Forsberg is a great pick this year in fantasy hockey. He helped me win my $100 buy-in league last year. I love having him on my fantasy teams. I love watching him play in real life as well. But there are just some major risk factors going into next season for Filip Forsberg that people are just seeming to glance right over. The first and most glaring concern is the fact that Forsberg is seemingly never healthy. If we take out last season, Forsberg has missed 62 games over the 3 previous years. Even if you take out the 2 COVID seasons, Forsberg has played in less than 70 games in 4 of the last 5 seasons in his career, guys. The last time he played over 70 games in a season was the year 2016-17. There is a significant injury history that managers just seem to forget about when they look at how good last season was for Filip Forsberg. And if that's not enough to scare you, remember that Nashville just brought in 2 other 40-plus goal high-volume shooters into their top 6 in Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos. And this kind of stuck with me, so naturally I did my research and I found that over the course of the last 10 seasons in the National Hockey League, there's only been 3 teams that have had 3 40-goal scorers at the same time during a regular season. The 2021-22 Calgary Flames with Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Gaudreau, rest in peace. 2018-19 Lightning and the 2023-24 Lightning with Steven Stamkos, Brayden Point, and Nikita Kucherov in both those seasons all having 40 goals. There has never been more than these 3 teams to have 3 40-goal scorers over the course of a season on one team. Did I also mention that all 3 of these elite high-volume shooters in Nashville, Marchessault, Stamkos, and Forsberg, are all right-handed shots? It's possible we see each of these players see a dip in goal scoring and shot volume just simply because, for lack of a better term, them cannibalizing each other. And that's not even including Roman Josi in this conversation. Who out of the 3 is going to get less ice time as they try to spread the scoring out? Who is going to get less looks on the power play? People seem to be so worried last season about Timo Meier coming into New Jersey and him not getting enough opportunity due to their lineup. Look at Nashville's top 6. I find it incredibly hard to believe that all 3 of these guys are going to be able to shoot and score at the exact same rates of their previous season. MoneyPuck.com has a really cool feature on their site where you can see a player's goal locations on ice. Look at all 3 of the Nashville shooters. That is a lot of slot area goals over the combination of these 3 players. Someone is going to get left out. Someone isn't going to be shooting or scoring as much as last season. It could be all 3. Now, with all that being said, if Filip Forsberg stays relatively healthy and doesn't get his shot and goal totals eaten into, he's got top 15 player upside again this season. We saw him do it last year. I think it's more likely that you see a guy like Marchessault dip in production and shot volume. Stamkos historically has also been a quality playmaker and has often finished with over 50 assists in multiple seasons in his career. So it's possible that we see him take more of that role if he's settled in. I don't know exactly what the line combos are going to be, but Forsberg could really be in a good spot and in for another fantasy monster season if he sticks with the same line that he did last year with Ryan O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist, where he found a ton of chemistry and was not only one of the best shot volume guys in the National Hockey League, but will likely get you another 120 hits with 50 goal upside. Joseph Woll has 2 main risk factors: his injury concern and his lack of sample size. Last season, Woll only played a total of 25 games and had very average stats to show for it, with a 12-11-1 record and a .907 save percentage along with a 2.94 goals against average. Prior to last season, Woll has only seen the net in 11 other regular season games. On the other hand, the 7 playoff games that Joseph Woll has played in over the past 2 seasons, he's been one of the best goaltenders during that span, with a .933 save percentage and a 1.78 goals against average, and then a .964 save percentage and a .86 goals against average in last year's playoffs. The concern with Woll has never been the talent or the skill, it's just whether or not he can stay healthy. After missing 3 months last season due to an ankle injury and then missing out on Game 7 and the remainder of the playoffs for the Leafs with that back injury that he suffered in Game 6, Woll has some considerable risk to him in terms of his health. But if Woll can stay healthy, I believe he has league-winning upside. As you can see, based on our projection, we believe Woll will be the clear-cut starter in Toronto, especially now with the Leafs signing him to a 3-year extension. Woll has been shown every opportunity and has shown in these opportunities that he has the talent to be a great goaltender for years to come. You factor in that the Leafs have the 5th most points over the last 3 regular seasons combined, and especially given his ADP, Woll could have some incredible value this season. Dougie's risk has come down quite a bit since it looks like he's going to be the clear power play 1 defenseman with Luke Hughes being out for 6 to 8 weeks, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to stick once Hughes returns, and Dougie in general is just far from being risk-free. Dougie has missed significant time in 2 of the last 3 seasons, missing a total of 82 games, in 62 of those games coming from last season where he needed surgery to repair a torn pectoral muscle. He's also going to be 31 next year, and with his injury concerns on an all-time high, I'm very hesitant when it comes to Dougie Hamilton. However, if Dougie is able to stay healthy, he should be in for a monster season. Dougie maintains one of the best shot volumes in the National Hockey League for defensemen and has hovered around a 9 shots per 60 for the majority of his career. Surrounded by elite talent throughout New Jersey's lineup, he has a chance to easily duplicate the season in 2022-23, where he finished with 22 goals, 74 points, 28 power play points, and 275 shots. The rest of Dougie's peripherals aren't that outstanding, but his shot volume is just so insane, and the fact that he has a ton of offense around him, he should be in a great spot looking forward to next season. There will always be some question marks about who will get that power play 1 spot in the foreseeable future for New Jersey, but it's likely if Dougie can go and establish some early success on that top power play unit, then I can't really see the Devils pulling him off once Luke Hughes returns from his injury, and in that case, Dougie could easily finish as your D1 on your team and have a ton of value given his ADP this year. Sorokin is still one of the most talented goaltenders in the National Hockey League, but last season we really started to see a chink in the armor. Sorokin was barely above league average last year, finishing with a 25-19-12 record with a .908 save percentage and a 3.01 goals against average in 56 games played. Not only was it not a typical year for him, but Patrick Waugh has now added a major element of risk to Sorokin's fantasy stock. Patrick Waugh started Varlamov in 4 of the 5 games in the playoffs last season for the Islanders, which was just a continuation from the regular season where Varlamov started to play more and more frequently towards the end of the season. And in the final month of the season, he actually ended up starting more often than Sorokin did. The Islanders also aren't exactly the best team in the regular season, ranking 20th in wins over the last 3 seasons combined, ahead of New Jersey by 1 and 5 ahead of the Buffalo Sabres. On top of all this concern surrounding Sorokin's volume, we now recently learned that Sorokin had off-season back surgery, adding another risk factor to his play. But truthfully, it's hard to ignore how elite Sorokin has been over the course of his career. He's played over 52 games in 3 consecutive seasons. He's had back-to-back .925 and .924 save percentage the 2 years prior to last season, and he leads all goaltenders in shutouts over the last 3 years combined. Until last season, Sorokin has been arguably one of the best goalies in the National Hockey League, point blank. I'm a little bit on the fence about him. Do I think that he can get back to his previous form outside of last season? Absolutely. Do I think the back surgery and the fact that he could get his volume eaten into are legitimately cause for concerns? Yes. I'm curious as to where you guys land on this one, but regardless, I still think he's the #1 option on Long Island to start the season. He does have some risk associated with him, but that risk is warranted for the reward. Trevor Zegras could be the definition of high risk, high reward. Look, I get it if you want nothing to do with this guy. I understand fully if you're just completely off of him, especially after I hyped him up last season as someone that could potentially reach another level to what he's already shown. And objectively, I still feel the same way in some capacity, that he has the talent to do so. Zegras is injured for the majority of last season, only playing a total of 31 games. He was also not very good when he was healthy from a production standpoint, with only 6 goals and 15 points in those 31 games. It also looks like he's lost his spot in the top 6 with the emergence of Leo Carlsson and Mason McTavish, and now Cutter Gauthier being added into the lineup, which then further caused some trade rumblings over the offseason this year that would show a Trevor Zegras out the door in some type of trade. Let me just remind you, in 2 of the last 3 seasons, Zegras has had over 60 points and 184 shots with 23 goals in both of those seasons. Let me also remind you that Zegras is only going to be 23 next season. I believe that he understands that things didn't go right for him last year, both with the injury and his play as a whole. I think he's aware of this and he's working towards fixing that. He's still also an insanely talented player with the puck and as a playmaker. And once he figures out his game and the consistency that's required for him, he is going to be a round of point a game player when he figures this out. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen next season, but I think it's entirely possible that doesn't happen while he's in Anaheim. And I think his value just ends up skyrocketing if he eventually gets traded. But I do believe that there's an outcome where the Ducks find a way to inject him into their top 6, and maybe involves him going to the wing in some capacity. I don't know what that looks like, but if they do, and if Zegras does continuously see top 6 minutes next year, you're getting a potentially undrafted player that can easily put up 60 plus points with a half decent shot volume and close to 25 goals. I think he's got the talent for it. I know some people objectively just hate him for the person that he is, but looking at it from a top-down perspective, he's a consistent 60-point player, and you're getting him at such an outrageous discount this year to where if it does end up landing, you're gonna wish you drafted this guy. All right, we're gonna do a bit of a speed run, hopefully to finish things off here, as I have been dragging this video out, but these players need to be addressed, and they all have some current level of risk, but I can still see some significant upside if everything ends up working out for these players. Andrei Svechnikov, you've heard time and time again how hyped we are about him as a player, especially in bangers formats. Listen, I'm ready to be heard again. We talk about him enough on the channel, so you guys know the story. If he's healthy, he could be a legitimate league winner. The problem is, he never is healthy. That's his one big downside. He's always around a point per game with a great shot volume and hit volume. He's also only 23 years old, which feels like, you know, as soon as I'm not drafting this guy, he's going to pop off, play a full season. So I'm going to continue to be on him. Maybe I'm the Svechnikov curse. I don't know. I love everything about him. I'm going to continue to look for him in drafts. But again, there is some risk associated with him being injured consecutively in his career. With Swayman, I haven't reached full panic mode yet, but as each day goes on and on, Swayman is more and more likely to remain unsigned, and the concern begins to grow if this could possibly drag into the season. Every time I get some kind of update on where both sides are at in terms of contract negotiations, it doesn't sound like anything is remotely close. That being said, that means he's going to sign tomorrow, because I just said that out loud on video recording this. But there are now conversations about how his long-term deal has suddenly turned into a bridge, as Swayman doesn't seem like he's willing to budge in any capacity in what he's looking for from a contract perspective. And Boston isn't willing to sign him long-term, with the concern that he hasn't really had a starter's volume potentially up until last season. Regardless of the reasoning as to why he remains unsigned, he still is unsigned. And with drafts coming up and camp starting tomorrow, the concern is starting to rise for me. Like I said, I'm not at a potentially full panic mode yet, which I might be with the next goaltender on this list. But again, if Swayman does end up being signed, I think he's got true top 5 upside this season. He's one of the best goalies in the National Hockey League. Fingers crossed he gets his contract done sooner than later. And finally, as I alluded to, Thatcher Demko is a goalie that has an increasing amount of concern for me for a lot of reasons, transparently. We know he's not going to be ready for the first little bit of the season. How concerning is the injury? Well, there is a report from Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts that stated his injury won't be able to be corrected with surgery, and that Demko is going to have to learn how to play through whatever this is, but he can play through it to a high level. I'm not exactly filled with confidence in the fact that Thatcher Demko, a goalie with already some significant injury concerns over the course of his career, is now going to have to change the way in which he plays at a high level for the rest of his career due to this current injury. It's also concerning that we don't know much else about his injury other than it's his knee, and even more so as to when we can expect him to be back. I hope we get some updates throughout camp, but I think it's possible that all of this does sound a lot worse than what it actually is. And if that's the case, you could be in a similar situation to last season where Vasilevsky started the year after, not being healthy for the first little bit, and you were able to get him at a huge discount in drafts. If everything ends up coming back fine and there is no immediate concerns with Demko and he shows that he can continue to be the elite goalie that he is, then great, fantastic. But something just doesn't feel right with me here. That is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Like I said, I'm always curious to hear your guys' thoughts on these players. These are just some guys that, I don't know, it seems like they have a lot of reward, but maybe the risk is too much for some of these guys. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts going forward. I also just want to say thank you so much for the support lately, guys. We love seeing you guys being active in the channel and the Discord. If you aren't in Discord, go ahead and hit that link in the description. It'll bring you to the Discord. Be sure that you're involved there. We have a huge fantasy hockey community where we talk nonstop about everything fantasy hockey related. But that being said, guys, that'll do it for me. I'll see you in the next one. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.